Unlearned Unlimited. What? Unlearned Unlimited.
Hey, welcome to Unlearned Unlimited. My name is Dr. Sito Narcisse. Welcome to our podcast. We're super excited about our show. Today, we got one of the dopest guests in the house. Now, I got a little bit of love for this sister because for a number of reasons. Number one, she's from New York City. So, big up to the NYC, hometown, my place where I grew up. But the other part I really love is she's been the first of a whole lot of things. And she is right now the Assistant Vice President for University Community Partnerships at University of South Florida. She was one of the first person of color that led the Association of Fraternity and Sorority as professional advisors for that. She's a first of a whole lot of stuff, written a whole lot of books, all that good stuff. So I had to bring my colors, clearly representing the yo, you know what I'm saying? So, hey, I want to welcome to the podcast, Dr. Mónica Lee Miranda. Dr. Miranda, what's going on? Welcome, girl.
Oh my goodness, you were too kind. Thank you so much. That was such a great intro. And yep, you got me wearing my sweater here.
Oh yeah, listen, you already know where we stand as Kappas, always about achievement, but we want to make sure that we show some love to all our frats and sororities around the country. But more importantly, you also want to talk about professionals that are doing some of the most innovative stuff in the nation and also doing some great things. You have been in that space for community partnerships at the university level across the country, and you've done a whole lot of stuff for Black and brown kids getting at the university level. So I wanted to make sure we could have that conversation with you today. So I think our community is going to be super excited about that. And we're going to really talk about that stuff. So a couple of things I want to start by telling you up first. So, I always love for people to tell us about their journey, right? I can go down the list, all your accolades, doctor, but I learned pretty quickly the best people that could tell you about themselves is themselves, right? So tell us a little bit about the journey, because this podcast, we're talking about community partnerships across sectors. And so tell us a little bit about your journey first as Mónica, the individual, and then we'll get into some cool questions. Is that cool?
Absolutely. Mónica, the individual. So I was born and raised in New York City. Very proud of that. Love the fact that I was born and raised in New York City. But I am Puerto Rican, very proud to be Puerto Riqueña by both parents who were born in Puerto Rico. But I am New Yorican. I visit my island every single year. And actually I'm about to, in a week, go for my third time this year.
Are you going to the Bad Bunny residency thing? I think Bad Bunny doing
yeah, I am. So yeah, born and raised in New York City, went to public school my entire life, elementary, junior high, which is now middle school, and then high school. Went to State University of New York, as well as SUNY School, University of Albany, for my undergrad. And then I started my career there in student activities. I was supposed to be a doctor, supposed to be a medical doctor. I still am a doctor.
You're a doctor. Right. Just a different doctor.
Doctor, but I was supposed to be medical school. That was my initial goal. I was supposed to be a psychiatrist. That was the initial goal. And then I started taking chemistry and bio. Chemistry I actually did pretty good in, but bio, my stomach can't.
I think we all got a story like that.
It was too much. So somehow I rolled my way into student life. I became a student leader. I was president of Fuerza Latina my junior year. I started working in the vice president for student affairs office as a student assistant. And that completely changed my life. That was it. That was when I realized, whoa, wait, I could do this for my whole life and work on a college campus and work with students and do this and get paid for it. What? Do programming, do educational programs. And so I realized that could be a career. So I went to grad school there, started, worked in residential life, worked then in student activities after that as my first full-time professional position. And then quickly went over to Rochester, New York, 3 hours more northwest from Albany, which was already about 2.5 hours northwest of New York City.
It's a different planet from New York City, too.
It's a different space, but definitely loved my experience in Rochester. I worked at the University of Rochester for 14 years in fraternity sorority life, actually. And then from there, made my way down to Tampa, Florida, when I swore I'd never live in Florida because it's too hot. And right now we are melting over here. But ended up in Tampa, Florida, and I love it. I love this place. I'm completely in love with the city, and I've been here now. This is I've just started my 13th year in the city of Tampa.
Okay.
Living kind of in the outskirts in the Pasco County. And yeah, I'm still a baseball fan. I'm a super duper Mets fan.
Well, that's the one choice I would say you made that I'm not like. We won't go there. I get it. I'm a Yankees fan, but I'm not gonna go into that. So let's.
Mets fan, Mets girl, Queens girl. Born in Brooklyn, raised in Queens. That kind of works together.
Everybody
right?
gets to make a bad choice in life, so I get.
Okay, let's not start because we want to talk about where the Yankees are right now and how the Mets are leading our division. But anyway, what else? I don't know. I think that's it. I mean, for me, is what you see is what you get. I'm going to tell it like it is, but always from a place of care. My greatest value is authenticity and integrity. Those are two of the things I really live for. And I had some really great parents. My father is actually with me right now. And they raised me right, and I need to honor that. And so,
let me ask you about the parents piece, because I've learned people become who they are for multiple sets of experiences, whether it's how their family connected them or how they didn't connect with their family, whatever their experiences have been. Like when you think about your influence and your growing up, I mean, you've accomplished a lot, right? And so you probably have gone through a lot of different spaces in your life. Like what are the type of influences that happened to you that made you, choose this road, become where you become, who you are as an individual?
I think, the biggest thing is that I always knew I was going to go to college. There was education was always key. Education was always important. There was nothing more important than that. There was nothing more important for my parents than me getting an education, me focusing on school all the time. When I was little in elementary school, I would get $1 for every A or E. Back then it was E. So I would get $1 for every excellent I would get on my report card. And so we had 26 different categories on the report card. So I would get $26 every quarter.
Oh, so your pops was rich.
Because I was, no, they weren't, but they made it important, right? They did what they had to do to make that important and to have us elevate. And so they really did do well in the providing us incentive to do well in school and to always be good in school. And I remember some of my core memories with my mom is in 6th grade, I did a spelling bee. I love spelling, grammar. I'm like one of those people. I'm an editor of a lot of things. And so I did a spelling bee, and I remember my mom, we were on the bed and I'm sitting and she's just laying down with the book in front of her and she's just giving me words and I have to spell them, and words and I have to spell them. And so the consistency of her always being in that space with me, her always helping me with whatever she could. And then her getting her bachelor's at 50 years old and pushing through that. And then also reminding me that family comes first too, because I was in 8th grade and my mom she was so far in school that I didn't get to do anything. And I said to her one day, I'm like, you don't take me ice skating anymore. And now I'm like, oh my God, what a little bratty little kid I was. But she actually did take a year off of school so that she can take me ice skating again. Oh, wow. And then she went back to school, because then at 9th grade, I was like, I don't want to hang out with my parents. I want to hang out with my friends. So really, I think it's just always been important. It's always been fostered. And knowing that my mom worked really hard to get her bachelor's at 50, knowing that my father did everything he could, even though his education stopped at 8th grade.
Oh, wow.
But he provided really, really well for our family and as well as they could. And, we didn't have everything, but I always felt like we had enough. I remember the struggle. I remember that I've been working since I was like 9 or 10, either babysitting or then working at a piano school, teaching piano at the school that I went to get piano lessons. But I had the benefit that I don't know how my parents did it. My father was a truck driver. My mom was a secretary, but my brother had baseball. My sister had dance. and piano. I went to dance school and piano school, and our dance school was JJ's Dance Studio in Jamaica, Queens, and they were two former Rockettes.
Oh,
Like,
wow.
it was a big deal. So the fact that somehow they found a way to give us all that and to pay for all that. I don't remember ever really going on a trip with the family. We never did anything. We never went anywhere, but
Yeah.
we went to Puerto Rico when we could. I think when I was before college, I think I might have gone to Puerto Rico maybe 3 times
Okay.
with my parents, because it was a family of 5. So 2 of them and 3 of us. And it was tough, but they made it work.
Yeah, I mean, they sound like they navigated, right? They figured out what the possibilities was for their kids, their dreams, right? And then they like, yo, no matter what happens, they thought about y'all trying to get those dreams. I mean, look at you accomplished their dreams. I'm sure they are proud of you, girl, in ways you probably would never imagined, right?
Yeah,
Well,
my father got to be with me yesterday. I got a community award yesterday. It's the first actual community award I've ever received. I've gotten a lot of different awards and professional awards, but this one hit different. It was from
he
the
was there.
community. It was from the Tampa Hispanic Heritage Incorporated organization. My father was able to be there, and I know that my mom is smiling down on me. So
That's right. That's right.
they're
That's
really
right.
proud.
Well, a lot of us is proud of you, girl. Someone got to be the first. It's let's get into this whole thing, right? I'm going to ask you some wild stuff, right? And so I was thinking about questions because I was preparing, like, okay, what do we think about, how, because you have so much experiences, right? And so much things that you've gone through to navigate to have the success you've had. So one of the questions I said, let me just start off with, Monica, was like, if you had to give yourself one piece of conventional wisdom about success, right, that you had that radically unlearn to truly thrive in your career, what would that be? So you're telling yourself, listen, imagine you're talking to your younger self. You want to give one conventional wisdom of like thing and say, hey, you need to unlearn this because this really is not applying to you to get to have the success you have right now. What would that be?
Oh, wow, that's a good question. I think I would tell myself to explore more. Explore what you really like, and don't let anybody tell you you can't make that a career. Like I probably would have been I think nowadays, I think the way they frame it, right, I would have been more innovative. I think now people want to do something and they just make it a career, right? Think about, we didn't have you. Okay, I'm dating myself here, but we didn't have YouTube. We didn't have YouTubers. We didn't have people who just got on social media. Man, we got email when that was like the big thing, was the fact that there was email. Hotmail. Remember that?
Yeah, I remember Hotmail.
Right. Email started when I was in college.
Yeah.
Really dating myself now. But thinking about how there's so many different ways to create yourself. And I think about my kind of more like my 17, 18-year-old self going into college and thinking I'm going to be a doctor, right? And realizing I changed my major 3 times, but I still stayed in a place that I thought was kind of, yes, I've always loved education. I thought I would be a teacher if I wasn't going to be a doctor. So I did stay in education. I did do it a little differently than I thought I did. I found a career that I didn't realize was a career. So in some ways I did think a little differently, but I think I would really tell myself, explore all the things you love, explore all the ways in which you light up in as you're doing it, and see how that can become a career. Talk to more people, meet more people, go outside your circle a little bit more. I think that would be some of the things I'd say to myself.
So I remember last time I saw you, I think I went up to visit you up at the University of South Florida. You guys had, it was you and Dr. Ray Cabrera. Shout out to Ray. How you doing? Hopefully we get you on the show, Ray. But I remember you guys were in a room with a bunch of students. I think they were from Michigan, right? Was that the Thurgood Marshall Fund? If I'm not I can't remember what the name
No,
of
it
it
was
was.
the McKnight Scholars.
The McKnight Scholars, right? They take
Foundation,
these
yeah.
kids to show them college access, et cetera, et cetera. And, you know, you were sharing
That
with
was
me
all.
like,
That was all Dr. Cabrera.
yeah,
That was all him. I was just there supporting the program.
so I remember you guys were sharing like, you know, when I asked you about community partnerships, what I thought was interesting was you never talked about community partnerships in isolation. I was listening to you talk about community partnerships as like it's access to a lot of things, right? And you worked around a lot of marginalized communities. And so one of the questions I kept thinking of was like, one is how do you define community partnerships in the work you do? Because you're in like doing a whole lot of stuff at the university level. And number two, when I think of sometimes of the work I see that you're doing, right, whether it's with, I know you wrote about Latino sororities and things like that and different stuff in communities, but like I thought about you in terms of college access, right? So my world was mostly in the K-12 world, and we would work with you guys to try to figure out ways to funnel kids that came from challenging communities to get access and opportunities into schools like the USFs of the world and those things. Like my question twofold is, one is how do you define it? Right. And then number two, how has your experiences helped you to kind of rethink how you kind of move in this direction? Because I would argue you guys have been tremendously successful under your leadership on trying to build these type of things at your institution. So those are kind of what I've been trying to think about.
Yeah, I think so. I think of it from the frame of community engagement, right? And so it's about engaging with the community in some way, shape, or form. But really, what I focus on a regular basis is creating, cultivating, establishing, sustaining mutually beneficial and reciprocal relationships, and that between the university and the community, where both grow and gain together, right? So oftentimes people think of universities as an untouchable space, a place where I don't have access to that. I can't get through the doors. I work at a public institution. Anybody can walk up on campus anytime, place, anywhere on campus. So it's about making sure that the community knows that we want them to have access, providing spaces in which we can provide them access. And then also, we are in the community. We need to contribute to the community in which we are placed. We need to help students on campus learn about the communities that they're going to then go into, that they're living in, that they're living by, and how they can contribute to that as well. And so thinking about, for example, the skills center, and it's one of my, it's one of the first people, one of the first organizations I connected with in this current role. And their chief program officer, shout out to Angela, their chief program officer is a USF alum. And so we connected at a community event, and then they were getting started their esports program, for example, right? So their esports program, okay, we're getting it started. We know USF has an esports program. Can you make a connection to me to the folks in the esports program? And I was like, oh, absolutely. And so that's what I do. And that's what I did, right? So it's about, my day-to-day is about connections. I have a draft of an email right now where I'm making connections from actually the Hillsborough County Supervisor of Elections to the School of Nursing. Why would that be a connection? Well, because in the past, the School of Nursing had always asked the county to come and help the students make it easier for them to change their addresses, figure all that stuff out by bringing them to campus when we have a lot of students who are either from a different part of the state or out of state, right? So it's about bringing things to the students, making it easier for them to transition, right? These are big transitions coming to college. So making sure that they have access to all of the things. And so I get to help with that access. I get to learn about the partnerships that we have. I get to learn more about them and figure out, okay, which ones maybe aren't working so well and we have to mend some relationships there, or which ones have we been sustaining for a really long time and might need a little boost, or they're good and they just need to keep going. And then which are the ones in the middle who have struggled to make a connection to the institution, which organizations are just starting up, or even which community members who are USF alum are starting their own businesses and don't realize we have a small business development corporation right on campus who can help them do that. Free resources.
Yeah, that's right.
So
which most kids don't ever know about.
Sorry?
I said, which most kids don't ever know about, or families, right?
Dude, I didn't even know about it when I first started my role. I was like, wait, we have what on campus? okay, can I meet with y'all and learn exactly what y'all do? So, and I had been at USF for over a decade before I got this job. Well, created the job. So, so being at USF, we think it's a big campus. We think it's large. We connect with some parts of it. I didn't know all parts of it. And I did pretty well in my previous role in student involvement to really connect with a lot of different campus parts of the campus. We were the ones who led the homecoming parade. And so lots of different portions of campus were involved in that. So I had pretty good connections. And still, in the last 2 years of this role, I have learned about so many different things and so many different centers and research arms and faculty who are doing work in the community and partnerships between the Hillsborough County Public Schools and USF. And there's like 15 different things that they do with 15 different departments on campus. And I mean, there's so much that goes on, and it makes sense, right? USF is a huge engine, right? It's an engine, it's an economic engine. And we have expertise that we can bring to the community, and the community has things that they want to do in it that we can help. And so why not bring that together and forge those partnerships that are mutually beneficial and reciprocal?
One thing I was just thinking about when you talked about like your upbringing, in terms of leaving New York, going to Tampa, those places, I was thinking about the same thing with like my transition from New York. I went to Atlanta, right, for college and everything. You imagine me with baggy jeans, Timberland boots, listening to Walkman. I was listening to hip hop music. I can still tell you Pete Rock, CL Smooth. I'm a little bit outdating myself with my hip hop, but I thought like and with a Walkman, right? That's actually connected. You know what I'm saying? But what I was thinking was like one of the things I remember I struggled around was I did pretty decent in school, right? And going into college and spaces, and I was like, yo, do I belong here? Right? And so like one thing you get the access to finally get there, but then you like, yo, like, do I really, should I be here? Like, am I the, and you go through this process in your head trying to figure out like, can I compete? Can I this? Can I that? Right. And over time and years, I learned like even the people who like had those opportunities didn't know how they got there. Right. So how do y'all deal with that? I know you help, always thinking about kids coming in with community partnerships and things like that. Like, how do you help the kids in those communities feel connected to not only the school, but the community itself and build their confidence through their process?
One of the things I'm smiling already just thinking about it. This is one of my favorite things we've done since I've started in this role. We had 120 fifth graders from Mort Elementary come to campus for half a day. And we collaborated with our Office of Youth Experiences, they're just amazing, and the College of Public Health. And so between the two of them, they created this curriculum for these students that would guide the tour that they did around campus, that would also teach them public health as they went around campus. So there was like this handheld thing that you put in front of you to take the picture, right? Like when you something that was public health. So if they were walking around campus and looking at the different buildings and learning what the different buildings were, and they saw a water fountain, how's that public health, right? And so they would catch and show the things that were public health along the way as they are with young students. So there were public health students. There were about 15 of them who helped be like the little group leaders. And so they were seeing students, they were seeing themselves in the students. And then these fifth graders got to eat lunch on the steps of our honors college. And it was just, I remember I had one fifth grader who I wrote his name down. I have his name actually on my phone in one of my notes. And I'm going to remember him because he asked somebody, who's in charge of all of this? Somehow they got him to me. And he came to me to say, I just wanted to tell you that this has been a very great experience for me. And I'm super appreciative of everything that you've done to make this day happen. And I can't wait till I get to USF and be a student here and be able to help and do this too. I was like, in fifth grade? I was like, you gonna be president of the United States, bro. Like I was in shock and in awe, and it reminded me why we do the work we do, right? So it's about those students coming to campus, seeing themselves as a student, creating that experience for them to then realize, I can come here, I can be a student here. And not only will I come here, I'm gonna ask for the person in charge of this program. I'm gonna tell her I'm coming here.
That's the confidence you need. Right. Well, you've written around. You can't see it. That's right. Well, you wrote about, I guess you've written around, like, co-authored and did publications around community partnership stuff across sectors, right? So what would you say is the untold truths, right, about community partnerships? You're like, dang, I didn't know it was like that. Well, I mean, if you had some aha moments or some untold truths about how this works, that was kind of like aha moments for you, what would you say they are?
It's interesting because I haven't really written about community partnerships more so than I have about fraternities and sororities. However, they are also community organizations, right? And so there are community partnerships in that. And I've written about the National Association of Latino Fraternal Organizations that I had the honor and privilege to be a co-founder of. And that was a partnership. That was a partnership of 16 to 20 organizations who said, we're going to come together and we're going to create this umbrella association to bring our organizations together. When on campus, we know our undergrads sometimes will battling against who's better or whatever. But, we did that. And I think thinking about partnerships the reality is it's not always easy. And it's not always simple. It's not always, there's tension sometimes, right? Somebody wants one thing, somebody wants another, and you've got to figure out how to come and meet in the middle. And meeting in the middle is not always easy.
What stops people from meeting in the middle?
I think now it's going to be funding. I think now it's going to be resources. I think when you're thinking of, when you're thinking of what and why you might have to meet in the middle, it's because, well, we both want this, but we only can afford that. So how do you choose from all the great initiatives that all you want to do is give back to the community, and all you want to do is give to the community and do for the community, but then you have to discern what you can afford to do for the community with decreasing resources, and it's hard, right? And so I think that's the hard part. But what I really have learned is that the conversation and the communication and making the connections, it's been such a breath of fresh air. It's been so easy to connect with people. It's been so easy for somebody to say, I just meet them at an event, and then 5 weeks later, we've already seen each other 4 different times and have talked about 5 different things to do together, and ways in which we can work together, or ways in which we can connect each other to other people. So I think while the work may be challenging, having the conversation isn't. And I think that's what people need to do, is at least start with a conversation.
Would you say funding is like the number one thing for community partnerships that make them not work? Or is it more ego, territory? Like, if you had to say, here's the 3 things I would say that I've seen and learned, that, like, this is why stuff doesn't work well.
I think it's a combination of all those things. I'm not, I don't know that I can say and give you 3 things right now. I'm still learning. I'm only 2 years in here, right, in this community partnership role, learning about the community of Tampa, and which is primarily what I serve. But then we also work with our partners in Pinellas County and St. Pete and in Sarasota, Manatee, because we've got 3 different campuses at USF. I think miscommunication would be an issue that would really create some breakdown of relationships or breakdown of the partnership. Definitely miscommunication. I've already seen that. I think people not being true in what they are saying, right? Not being authentic with the relationship and not being authentic in their thoughts and ideas and what they're sharing. Um, if the community we're serving has vulnerabilities, we have to be able to be vulnerable as the leaders in that community so that we can better serve it. And if we're not comfortable with that, if we put the ego in the room, then it's absolutely going to break down, right? You can't have egos when you're trying to help people.
Right, right.
Fortunately, I don't see that. I think I have the benefit to working in a city that I think really has a lot of collaborative efforts. We have things like the Tampa Bay Partnership, that it's a collaborative effort of people coming together to make sure that we understand what are the stats of the community. I go to multiple events where it's 2 to 3 hours, half day programs where all we're doing is talking about what's happening in downtown Tampa and who are the partners who are putting that all together, right? And how do people, and they do that and they share that with the community so that we can all figure out, okay, how could we help, right? So it's always about, and I've seen it's often been about how do we help the economic development corporations, the EDCs, the Chamber of Commerce in Tampa Bay is all about partnerships and support. And I think about the Tampa Bay Bucks and everything their foundation does with the chamber and the millions of dollars they've given to small businesses in partnership with the chamber and in partnership with all the smaller chambers around the city, that to give grants to small businesses who were impacted by the double hit of hurricanes we had last year. And you can't do any of that without partnership. It's all about partnerships. And so it's been, I feel like I live in this, not to say that everything is perfect here in the city, and not to say that everything's perfect in the greater Tampa Bay area, but I don't think I'm just having this Pollyanna-ish frame. I think this area just really thrives on partnerships and doing things to help build the city up and creating programs that are continuing to help people rise, right? And rise, particularly people who are more marginalized, rise. And I have a conversation on Friday with someone from the chamber to talk about their minority business accelerator and how I might be able to help with one of their sessions and their programs. And so there's so many different programs out there for people to assist them to build, to help rebuild, because that's what we've been doing. I think of the work that one of our faculty members at USF, Elizabeth Dunn, has been doing with so many different other partner agencies in the relief of the hurricane efforts, right? And we can't do what we do in this community. We can't serve each other and help each other without partnerships, especially when we're dealing with the post-hurricane relief pieces.
Do you think that formula that you guys use in Tampa can work in any city across the country?
Absolutely. I mean, I know that we often will also go to different cities. I know the chamber hosts an annual visit to other cities where they work and talk to other chambers. And again, it's a partnership, and it's the people who go to this trip, it's people from across sectors. It's business, it's in different industries, it's nonprofits. And it's, they come together to visit other cities and saying, how can we continue to enhance our city, right? How can we continue to enhance the things that we do here? And often, economic development councils are generally all across the nation. I think of even the program Leadership Tampa that I just graduated from. I'm the class of 2025. Super proud. Best class ever. So Leadership Tampa, you put together 50 people from all different industries in the city, nonprofits, government, non-government, business, owners of their own companies, COOs of companies, CEOs of companies, director level, VP level, basically C-suite level folks, right? All different industries. And you put them together for 9 months, and we learn all about the city. We learn all the ins and outs, the operational pieces, and then we become ambassadors to where we live. in really figuring out then also, how are we going to contribute and how are we going to contribute together? We just did a ribbon cutting last week, and our class is going to be a part of a habitat community build where there's 23 homes being built, and we're going to be creating the community garden for that space and for that community, and thinking of, all the things that we could have done. We want to roll up our sleeves with the community and do it with them. And so that's why we chose that.
And, just for our audience out there, I want to give them some context too. So I've lived in, I don't know if you knew my story, Monica, but I lived in, I've worked in 9 school districts, multiple cities across the country, right? So I've gotten exposed to different sets of communities. And when I was going through school, I started off as a teacher, moving my way up all the way to superintendent. I didn't know half of this stuff existed. I was just teaching a kid in the classroom. Like, people have no idea. And I didn't know how much it impacted K-12 education at the university until I moved up in the food chain. But what I thought was interesting, like, every city has a leadership, the name of that city. Every city has these. Yeah. Now they think about partnerships in a lot of different ways, right? No judgment on that. And sometimes it could be based on economics. It could be based on the politics. Like, there's a whole lot of craziness. But I think, like, what I'm always hopeful, I was excited about you coming on the show is, like, trying to educate folks to understand, like, hey, here are the factors of community partnerships that work, and here's ways you could think about it as no matter what space you live in or what job you have in that city, that you can get involved and become connected in the city in that way. And you find that people don't always, not that they don't want to be involved, but they're just not exposed to that, right? Because once I got exposed, like, oh, I could participate in this. So now I go to a city, I'm like, hey, I want to engage in variations of things, right? So, and I think that makes a huge difference on you working better in your field or your sector or where you are. And so really super excited that you kind of share that.
Well, and I think too, again, it's about pursuing your passions, right? So right. I have a thing with pageants and pageantry.
No, you do.
I do. And so when I moved here, I remember my house was being painted. I had been here a year. I had just closed on my house. I had painters in the house, and I had an opportunity to go get certified to be a judge for the Miss America organization. I was like, what?
Oh, wow.
Certified to be a judge?
How was that going? Like, listen, I could judge these folks?
So I was like, I always had my little paper and pen in front of the TV. So I was doing it my whole life with my mom, but to actually be able to do this, like, this is actually a thing. So I learned about it. I decided, okay, well, they're painting. There's nothing in my house. They can't steal anything. So I'll leave them painting, and I'm going to go do the certification, and I'll be back. So I went, and at the end of it, I said, okay, hi, my name is, and I've lived here for a year, and I think I want to make this my community contribution, my first way to do something for the community and get involved.
Yeah.
How do I live in Tampa? How do I get involved? And the person in the front, who was then the assistant executive director for Miss Florida, he's now the executive director for Miss Florida. He says, turn around, meet Bob Clark.
Oh, wow.
I turn around, and I see this man, seasoned gentleman, with a little curly mustache.
Tell people who Bob Clark is so they can know who Bob Clark is.
Bob Clark is, I'm going to tell you. So, seasoned gentleman, little curly mustache. He was then the owner of Tampa Steel Erecting Company. So if you've ever been to Disney, you've seen the Epcot ball. His company built the Epcot ball. And so he's always wearing a Mickey tie. Yep. And he is a businessman, super beloved businessman and networker and connector in the community. I mean, he is master connector. He has hosted a networking lunch every Friday for the last 24 years at the Columbia Restaurant in Ybor City. And so much so that the 5th generation owner, Andrea Gansmart, super sweet, she created a gold plaque and put it at the table, and table 100 is now the Bob Clark table. And so all the things that he's done in the community, I had the honor and privilege of just saying, hey, I want to get involved. It so happened Bob was behind me. I met Bob, and for the last decade, I've been a member of the Miss Tampa board. And that one involvement and that one engagement is pretty much what has gotten me and trained me into my current role that I didn't even know I was going to get. I was in Fraternity Story Live. I was in student activities. I didn't know I would start working with the community. the Chamber of Commerce. What was the Chamber? I didn't even know what the Chamber of Commerce really was.
Right.
And so thinking about, you just step out, just do the one step out, get involved in one way just to start in something that you really, really love.
Right.
And if you can find a way in that, the doors that could open for you, the doors that it can lead you to, if you allow it, can really, really be something that can change your life. It was Bob who introduced me to my mentor, Joanne, who then was the one who said, you need to write your own job description. And I was like, okay, what's that going to do? Well, you listen to your mentors, get some good mentors, and you listen to your mentors, because I wrote my own job description. I started pitching it, and I'm living and breathing in that role now that I created. And I love my job every single day. And yesterday, that crazy? Yeah. And yesterday at that award, I had my dad seated to my right, and I had Bob Clark seated to my left, and Joanne was to his left. And so thinking about the people and the elders who have gotten me to where I am, they don't always look like you, and that's okay.
Right.
But I think it's about, if you want to get connected, if you want to build community, you also have to do something to get there, right? You have to come out into the community, find that one thing, and let that one thing help you find everything else.
You know what I find fascinating, Monica, in the story that I always hear as we talk to a lot of different guests is you learned it on the job or on the ground, right? You didn't say, hey, I went to school and they taught me about all these things, right? And the reason when we started the podcast, we talked about this whole Unlearned Unlimited thing was because from an unlearned standpoint, you learn all this stuff in school, or you learn something, right? And you figure out, like, wait a minute, it's got nothing to do with either where I end up or what I'm trying to do, right? So we were like, well, let's talk to folks who are out there doing some really big stuff, and then see, like, let them share their story, but then talk about the unlimited portion, right? What are the possibilities if you think about, right? And I think, like, when I hear you talk about possibilities, it's like, being out there and engaging people. You may not know them, may not look like you, but hey, I'm out there going to have a conversation. Look at that conversation. It has you sitting in spaces that some people would die to want to sit in, right? And you're doing these amazing, amazing things that are very fortunate that have also changed not only your trajectory in your career, but also like the dynamic of your family, to see that with how they feel about those things, right? And I think, like, I always think about my own path, like, my family didn't know none of that stuff. Like, it wasn't until I got access, or I got certain things I saw, and and some of that stuff I learned by mentors, people around me, or being, not being scared to have a conversation, even though some conversations were tougher than others, or, I had to learn how to navigate and talk with people, those things. So I think about community partnerships in a lot of different ways that help to form the dynamic where I am. And so I just thought that comment that you made was really interesting. I want to get us into this last space around and get your opinion on AI technology with community partnerships, right? Ooh. So now AI is like changing the game on every field, sector, whatever, right? And so I don't know if you thought about this, but like, when you think about the role that you do when it comes to community partnerships and those things, how do you think AI will play a factor in those spaces to either help grow the connection that happens amongst people, or hinder the connection amongst people that you think about that, or evolve, right? Because I always think sometimes, when you get a new technology or a new something that helps you interact, it just recreates how you engage in particular ways, right? With the real world. And so any thoughts around that?
Oh, so many thoughts around that. So I think AI. So look, when you talk about community engagement, when you talk about community partnerships, the word community is first. Mm-hmm. So community is still critical. I think AI is a different type of, it gives you information that you might be able to find more easily to then figure out how you take that out in the community. Okay. I think AI also has provided us a way to better communicate with each other. you can make sure your tone and your, like, if you use it as a tool, you could write your message and then you can check your message and you can get coaching with your message. And they can redraft your message to make sure that you're actually sending the message to the person in the way you want them to be receiving it, right? So communication can be helped if you're using it as an effective tool for your communication with others. I also think for us, I mean, we're starting a new AI college. Thanks for the opportunity to plug that. But we are starting a new AI college at USF in the fall. And that is also about the community coming together and making this happen. And community partner saying, I believe in it so much, I'm going to donate $40 million. And it is now the Bellini Center, the Bellini College of AI. And cybersecurity, right? So it's a lot about partnerships still, because I think about all the events that have happened even in the last 2 years that I've experienced, that have brought together the tech communities, that have brought together people to talk about this and figure out how do we continue to evolve and innovate with this new technology. And so I have a former student who's working on an 813 Tech Day, first of its kind program, and he's just creating it. And I've been connecting him with some folks and some community members, and he's doing a panel. And a friend of mine has a cybersecurity company, and so I made that connection with them, and he's going to be a part of that panel. And so I think for me, the way I'm seeing it is, again, it's still about bringing people together in the community to talk about that. And you mentioned earlier about how we don't really learn this stuff in school. And I think of, you have me here wearing and having to dust off my Omega Phi Beta sweatshirt here, my jacket here, but when I think about it, that's who helped me with learning how to do what I do, right? The networking in the fraternal community that I learned back then is what I use every single day. And the connections I have, I think of those two people who I made that connection for. One's your frat and the other is a former student who I've still sustained a great connection to, more so because we're in Latino fraternal organizations.
Yeah.
And he married my sorority sister. And so, that in the fraternal connection is still there. So of course I'm going to help him. One, he's one of my first students I ever really worked with, but two, he's also married to my sorority sister. And so those connections, I think, even though we're talking about AI and even though we're talking about what technology can do and how it will impact our communities, we're still talking about community and building that community and educating that community about AI. So for me, again, it's always going to be my lean, right? So I'm always going to somehow figure out how to tie it to the community, because that is where I am now. That's my number one right now. And so it's out there. We've got to figure out how to navigate it. We've got to figure out how to use it effectively.
Yeah.
But we also have to figure out how it also can share information that may be not the best. I just read something this morning about how if you put something, and this is just what I read, right? I'm not trying to get political here, but it said something about if you are putting into ChatGPT how a woman should negotiate salary, it has generally been putting out the salary level at half a male asking that question.
Oh, wow.
So I haven't dove into that too much yet to see where is that really true. But I did see that this morning. I'm like, okay, now I'm curious about what that's about. And so I'll be asking some of our AI folks and our faculty that are coming into that school to be like, okay, so is this actual? Is this a real thing? Mm-hmm. Because then we've also then have to make sure that as we're teaching the use of AI and using that as a tool, that we also recognize that sometimes what are the challenges in building these new tools, and how do we need to build them so that there's equity in them? How do we need to build these tools so that we understand that what the information is that's being then put out into the community is information that is effective, it's going to work for the community and not work against them.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I mean that whole thing is interesting to me. I'm probably gonna go and when we get off, actually ChatGPT and check it.
Yeah.
But I'm not shocked about a lot of things. I mean, the question I always get more. I guess I ask more questions now these days about a lot of things. But it's like you're trying to always get to the truth, right? And to like mitigate and see like what's the reality of what people go through and try to find real answers. I mean, because now everybody can give an answer. They may not have any accuracy to it, but it becomes the narrative, right? And so we try to push really hard on, like, okay, find out like what's the reality and then what's the possibilities, right? Because you can only build, to me, from true possibilities, not fake ones, right? And so you see that a whole lot. So yeah, but I'm so super excited that you came on the show. Really glad you're here. Anytime I get to talk about fraternity and sororities, I always shout out mine, Baton Rouge alumni, Baton Rouge flagship chapter, Kappa Alpha Psi, you know how we do. Just
Alpha
really
chapter,
excited.
Alpha chapter, Alpha chapter, Omega Phi Beta.
Yeah, I mean, because you build community in ways and connections and deep connections over time too. People don't know. Also learning about all the importance of, trying to get to your success and goal, because it builds you builds character in a lot of different ways. So I'm always thankful for that experience in my life. And so, well, here's what I want to tell you. One is I promise you're going to come back in person.
Okay.
Right.
We will make that happen.
Right. So we can have a part 2, talk about some more cool stuff. I really think that, I appreciate you sharing a lot of knowledge. I'm super proud of you, sis, doing some wonderful work. Not only for the city of Tampa, but, state of Florida and also the country, right? Because, I know we got fans all over that read your stuff and really have inspired into a lot of work. Person even I hang out with who's like your big fan, so, but, you just taking the time to come to Unlearned Unlimited to talk through around that. Really excited. So we'll do some more stuff. And for those of you out there, if you like our show, please make sure you share, like, and subscribe to Unlearned Unlimited Podcast. We're all the platforms from LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok, you name it. You can hear more from Dr. Mónica Lee Miranda about her work. Before we sign off, Mónica, could you share a little bit about some of your publications or some stuff? I don't know if there's any books or anything like that you'd love to just shout out.
Sure.
We'll put it in the handle for folks to go to it.
This is my most recent one. It's called Affirming Identity, Advancing Belonging, and Amplifying Voice in Sororities and Fraternities. And so this was a book I co-edited with 2 incredible colleagues, Dr. Pietro Stasso and Dr. Patrick Biddix. We did this one back in 2024. We did 2 other books together in 2020. So we actually started in planning just 1 book, and then somehow it became 2. So pretty much all 3 are related to fraternity and sorority life. Prior to my work in community partnerships, currently, I spent over 20 years working in the field of fraternity and sorority life and student programs and student involvement pieces. And so that really was my initial expertise area in higher education, until I made this shift to realize that those smaller communities that I was helping and building ended up really making me realize that it's the greater community that I wanted to serve. And so that's what I get to do every day and love it now in community partnerships.
Well, folks, we'll put it in the link in the bio below, all that information. Please make sure you put some comments in. We always send the comments to our guests. They can respond to you. They've been pretty good at that as well. No question's a bad question. We just love to try to engage with folks who are doing great work like Dr. Mónica Lee Miranda in terms of her work. So that's all we got for you. Thanks for coming out. Make sure you share, like, subscribe. Like I said, if you like our show, make sure you send some contributions around there. We'll go from there. All right, Unlearned Unlimited.
Thank you so much for having me.
Unlimited, 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 unlimited.